Hungarian Folk Tales. King Kitty. Once upon a time there lived a poor old woman, and she had a cat. The cat was so greedy that he poked his nose into every jug and jar. Then the day came when the old woman could not stand the cat's greedy ways any longer, and she said to him, "Get out of my house. You may go wherever you like, but never darken my door again." So the greedy cat was forced to go out into the wide world. The cat walked until he came to a bridge, where he sat and gave a sad meow. And as he sat, he caught sight of a fox sitting nearby. The cat prowled slowly around the fox and rustled the bushes. The fox was terrified, as he had never seen a cat before, and the cat was terrified because he had never seen a fox before, so they both just stood there shaking. Which of us should be in charge? What? You don't know who I am? I'm King Kitty. All the animals are afraid of me. Oh, I am ashamed to say that I have never heard of you before, the fox confessed, and immediately invited King Kitty to his humble home for a sumptuous supper of chicken, duck, goose, and anything else he could find. "Please eat more, Your Majesty. Make yourself at home." When the feast was finished, the fox prepared an exceptionally soft bed for King Kitty, who ordered complete silence while he had his royal nap. "Get away from here! Don't you know that King Kitty is sleeping in my house? If you wake him now, he's sure to have you executed." "Where are you running to? Are the hounds on your tail?" "Don't ask me, Bear. I was passing Fox's house and he told me to run away because King Kitty sleeps within, and if I woke him, he'd have me executed." The bear pondered. "I have travelled to many lands, but I have never heard of such a feline figure. I shall pay a visit to the fox and see this King Kitty for myself." "Oh, Bear, please don't go there, because if you wake King Kitty, he'll have you executed and me along with you." This frightened the bear, who ran and ran until he reached the rabbit. "Oh my, what will happen if King Kitty wakes up and walks out into the forest?" "I've got a splendid idea. Let's all invite King Kitty to a banquet." "If you trust me, I'll go to the fox and invite His Majesty." "All right, I'll go to see if King Kitty is awake, and I'll inform him of your wish." "Your Majesty, a crow has arrived sent by the animals of the forest to invite you to a royal banquet." King Kitty brushed his white whiskers and said, "Very well, you may go and tell the crow I will attend." As evening came, King Kitty began to make himself ready. He waxed his whiskers and left in the company of his host the fox. The crow met them to show the way, but the crow was too scared to fly down to the ground, and so instead he flew from tree to tree and called, "This way, please, this way, please." The other animals soon sighted King Kitty arriving with the fox. "Oh dearie me, here comes King Kitty, he'll skewer me on his spiky whiskers." But all of a sudden the animals took fright and fled to all four corners of the forest. And if these foolish animals had not run away, my story would have lasted longer still. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Pussycat Princess. Once upon a time, there lived a king, and the king had 3 sons. All 3 princes were of marrying age, and so their father told them to find themselves wives. He threw 3 sticks in the air, one for each son, and said, "Wherever your stick falls is where you find your bride." The eldest son's stick fell towards a young baroness. The middle son's stick fell towards a young countess, while the youngest son's stick fell towards the dark forest. The young men all left the palace, but the youngest one was very sad. He had no idea how he would find a bride in the thick forest. And as he was walking in the forest, he met a small pussycat that walked behind him. The young prince spoke to the pussycat and said, "My royal father told me to travel to these parts where I would find my bride, but I can't see a girl anywhere near. Don't worry, I will marry you." The prince could not return home until he promised to marry the pussycat. The other princes had already arrived back, and their father asked them each what they thought of their bride. The eldest one said that he found a baroness, and the middle son said that he found a countess, while the youngest one asked them to wait and see. Then the king ordered all the 3 grooms to fetch a beautiful bouquet from their beloved. The 2 elder ones went happily, but the youngest one was very sad. When he reached the edge of the forest, the pussycat was already waiting for him. "My dear betrothed, you look so unhappy. Tell me, why are you so sad?" "How wouldn't I be sad when my royal father has ordered us all to bring a bouquet from our fiancés? Now what could I bring from a pussycat?" "Don't worry, just lie down and take a rest." Then the pussycat scratched a tree and many more pussycats appeared. One of them brought silver flowers, another golden flowers, and a third brought diamond flowers, and the bride arranged them all in a beautiful bouquet. The other 2 princes were already at home when the young prince arrived late. The king said that the bouquets were truly beautiful, but the most beautiful of all belonged to the youngest son. They all asked him to tell the name of his bride-to-be, but he asked them to wait and see. Days passed and soon became a week, when the king ordered his sons to go to their brides and fetch a handkerchief each. The young princes all left, but the youngest one was very sad. By the time he reached the edge of the forest, the pussycat was already waiting for him. "My dear betrothed, you look so unhappy. Tell me, why are you so sad?" "How wouldn't I be sad when my royal father has ordered us all to bring a handkerchief from our fiancés? But a pussycat cannot weave." "Don't worry, just lie down and take a rest." The pussycat scratched the tree, and once again more pussycats appeared. One brought silver yarn, another brought golden yarn, and a third gave diamond yarn, and the Pussycat bride wove them together. When he arrived at the palace, the king inspected all 3 handkerchiefs. He told the eldest boys that theirs were quite pretty, but he told the youngest son that his was the prettiest of all. Weeks passed and soon became a month when the king told his sons to bring their fiancées to the palace. The 2 elder boys went happily for their spouses, while the youngest one became sadder than ever before. How could he possibly take the Pussycat home? His Pussycat bride was already waiting for him at the edge of the forest. "My dear betrothed, you look so unhappy. Tell me, why are you so sad?" "How wouldn't I be sad when my royal father has ordered us all to fetch our brides? Now how can I present a pussycat at the palace?" "Don't worry, just lie down and take a rest." The youngest prince thought he would never sleep, but at last he succumbed and fell into a slumber. When he awoke, he was very worried, but the young princess told him it was she in the guise of a pussycat whom he had betrothed, but she had been under a curse to live like that until a young man asked for her hand in marriage. "I was a pussycat, and you asked me to marry you, so I turned back into a princess." A wonderful coach awaited them, with proud coachmen and fine horses, so the prince sat in the carriage with his princess and travelled back to the palace in regal style. The wedding party was already underway at the palace when the guards came to the king and told him that a king had arrived from another country. When the young couple arrived, the king soon saw that they were his son and his beautiful bride. They were all amazed to discover that the youngest prince's bride was the most beautiful of them all. Then they all sang and danced and danced and sang until the wedding party was done. And this is where my story ends. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Giant Beanstalk. Once upon a time, many years ago, there was a poor woman, and she had a son and a little cow. They had no food at home, and so the mother told her son, "Go, son, drive the cow to market, but be sure to get a good price for her." So the son took the cow to the market. He quickly found a buyer and exchanged the family cow for a single bean. The boy hurried home to show his mother what he had made at the market. The mother cried and cried when she learned that he had sold the cow for a single bean, but her son consoled her. "Don't be sad, mother. The old man who bought the cow said that I should plant this bean today and wait to see what happens." So the young boy planted the bean under the window in the small garden, but he was so anxious to see what would become of the bean that he couldn't even eat his supper. He awoke the following day to discover that the bean had grown overnight. He looked out of the window, but he couldn't even see the top of the giant beanstalk. He thought he'd take a better look, so he walked out of the house and stared up at the sky. However hard he looked, he still couldn't see the top of the beanstalk, so the boy said to his mother, "Well, mother, now you can see how much that bean was worth. I'm going to climb to the top to see how high it is." He climbed and climbed until the great height made him feel dizzy in the head. There was a hole in the clouds, and the young boy peeped through and saw a spectacular house. He thought, I'm tired after climbing, so I can stay here for the night and climb back down the beanstalk in the morning. He walked into the house and saw an old woman. The woman asked the boy, "What are you doing here, my child?" "My husband is a dragon. He has 3 heads. If he sees you, he'll eat you up." The boy begged the woman to hide him because he was terribly afraid of the dragon. The woman asked him, "Are you hungry, my child?" "Oh yes, I'm very hungry indeed." The woman immediately gave the boy some supper and he thanked her for her kindness. "Come now, hide away at once as my husband is coming home." She brought a large bowl into the room and hid it underneath the bed. The little boy was very tired, but he was far too afraid to sleep. When the clock struck 12, he heard a terrible rumbling and grumbling sound. The fierce dragon walked into the house carrying a black hen under his arm. He put it on the table and said, "Lay an egg." And the black hen laid a golden egg. Then the dragon said again, "Lay another." And the hen laid as many golden eggs as the dragon wanted. But the fearsome dragon was very hungry. "Wife, fetch my supper." And his wife brought the dragon a meal. The dragon ate all his supper up. When he'd eaten his supper, the dragon told his wife to fetch his hurdy-gurdy. "Wife, is that a stranger I can smell in the house?" "Be calm, my dear. There is no stranger here." "But there is. Bring him here or I'll tear you to pieces too." But the wife continued to calm her monstrous husband. The dragon played music until he fell asleep. He slept so peacefully that he didn't even snore. The wife thought it best to go to bed too, because it was almost dawn. When the boy saw that the dragon and his wife were fast asleep, he crept out from underneath the bowl and grabbed the black hen. He took the dragon's hurdy-gurdy, and just before he disappeared back through the hole, he took a look back and saw that the dragon was running after him. So the young boy climbed quickly back down the giant beanstalk and grabbed a sharp axe. And he chopped the giant beanstalk down. The dragon fell to the ground and broke all his bones. Nobody had to be afraid of him anymore. Then he went to his mother, who was frightened by all the fighting. "Don't be afraid, mother. We shall both have food from now on." "How so, son?" Then the son placed the hen on the table and stroked it, saying, "Lay an egg." And the black hen laid a glorious golden egg, and it kept laying golden eggs until the mother and son were both rich. And the boy played beautiful music all day long to his mother's delight. And if you don't believe my story, you can go and see for yourself. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Princess, 3 Pigs, and 3 Birthmarks. Once upon a time, there lived a poor man who had a wife. After a time, they had saved enough money to buy a piglet. They enjoyed rearing their piglet very much, but their happiness was not complete. They still did not have a child of their own. One day, the wife told her husband, "I think I might be pregnant." "Maybe you are mistaken." After a few days, the husband said to his wife, "I think the pig might be pregnant." "Maybe you are mistaken. It must have eaten too much and its belly is fat." The months passed and their son was born. The man was happy. He went to the pigsty to feed the pig, and what did he see there? 3 little piglets had also been born that day. Everyone in the house was happy. As the young boy grew up, he took the pigs to graze in the meadow at the end of the king's garden. The boy had a flute, and he liked to play it for the pigs to dance. One day, the young princess saw the pigs dancing in the meadow below. "For how much will you sell me a dancing pig?" "For no money at all if you lift your skirt to your knee." What use is that to you? Would you rather not have a bag of gold? But the boy said he did not want the gold. Then the princess suddenly changed her mind and lifted up her skirt to her knee. And the boy gave her a pig. When he arrived home in the evening, his father asked the boy, "Where is the missing pig?" "The wolf has taken it. He will pay the price." The boy returned to the king's garden with his pigs the very next day, where the princess saw him and asked again, "For how much money will you sell me a second dancing pig? For the first one will not dance alone." "For no money at all if you lift your skirt up to your waist." "Would you rather not have a bag of gold?" But the boy said he did not want the gold. The princess hesitated for a second and then pulled her skirt up to her waist. And the boy gave her the second pig. When the boy arrived home that night, his father asked, "Where is the second missing pig?" "The wolf has taken him. It will pay the price." On the third day, the boy went back to the same place with his last pig, where he found the princess waiting for him. "For how much will you sell me the third dancing pig, because the first two will not dance without the third?" "For no money at all if you lift your skirt up to your neck." Then the boy gave her the third pig along with his flute. When the boy arrived home that night, his father asked, "Where is the third missing pig?" "The wolf took it, father. It said it would pay the price." "The wolf has no money." "It has, father. It has a lot. And now I shall go and collect the price for the pigs." When the boy arrived at the palace gates, a guard asked him, "What do you want here, little boy?" "I came to the princess to get the price for my pigs." The guard went to the princess and told her that a boy had come to be paid for the 3 pigs. The princess simply said, "Fill a bag with gold and give it to him." The boy arrived home again and poured all the gold out onto a table. The boy's mother and father had never seen so much money in their lives before. The next day, the king announced that his daughter had 3 birthmarks on her body, and any man who could tell him where they were could marry her. But any man who made a mistake would be beaten for his troubles. Hearing this, the boy said, "Father, go to the market and buy me the strongest horse, the finest saddle, a beautiful suit and a silver sword, but do not bargain and pay the proper price." And off the boy set for the royal palace. As he was riding, he met a prince and a young baron, who asked the boy, "Where are you going, young knight?" "I'm riding where I like." "What is your name?" "It is what it is." "Look, let's ride with him. He knows a lot of jokes." And from then on, they called him the Joker. As they were riding, the sun set and they found themselves on the shore of a large lake. After the boy fell asleep, the prince and the baron drove a stick into the centre of the lake and fastened the boy's horse to it. When the boy woke, he saw what they had done to his horse, but he did not say a word. But he cut the hide on the legs of the other horses and rolled it up to the knee. Then he fell asleep again. When morning came, they shouted, "Get up, Joker! You are a lazy fellow. Look, your horse swam to the middle of the lake to quench its thirst." "That's right, and yours rolled their trousers up to go and save it." All 3 reached the palace the next day. There were many princes, barons and gypsies gathered, but none of them knew where the princess had her birthmarks, and each received 60 strokes of the cane for his troubles. The baron thought it best to go in with the boy, as he might find out the answers. The boy said, Venus is shining on her delicate belly. That's right, said the king. Why did you say that? That was exactly what I wanted to say. The sun and the moon radiate their beams from her bosoms. That's right, came the reply. That was exactly what I wanted to say, said the young baron. The courtiers began to discuss the result. Their decision was that the princess and the three young men should go to the same bed, and the one she turns to will be her husband. And that's what they did. The boy had a good stock of sweets and cakes in his pockets, and he ate them noisily. What are you eating? The baron asked. The heel of my boot. Take off your boot and eat its heel. So the baron tore the heel off his boot and offered a part to the princess. Please have some, my dear. The princess could not chew the leathery heel, and she kicked the baron out of the bed. Then she turned towards the boy, who gave her sweets and cakes. The next morning the door was opened and they saw that only the boy was in the bed, while the baron hid in shame. The baron got 60 strokes for feeding the princess with the heel of his boot, and another 60 strokes because he did not know the whereabouts of her birthmarks. And so the boy married the princess, and they had a fabulous feast, and all were invited, both rich and poor. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Two Princes with Hair of Gold. Once upon a time there was a young prince who left his home looking for a bride. He was riding through a village when three girls watched him pass. The eldest girl said, "If that prince married me, I would make him wear a linen shirt." That was a joke, of course. The middle girl said, "I would make him sleep on a sack of straw." And the youngest girl said, "Well, if he married me, I would give him 2 sons with hair of gold." The prince's coachman overheard all of this and he told his master. So the prince said, "Go and get the girl who said she would give me 2 boys with hair of gold." The coachman called the girl over and the prince told her to join him in his royal carriage. Time quickly passed and the young queen became heavy with child, but before she could give birth, the king had to go and fight. There was an old witch in the court who had teeth of iron, and she had a daughter. She would have liked the king to have married her daughter, but when he married another, she hated the young queen very much. When the king went off to war, she said to herself, "Just wait, queen, you will pay for all of this." The day came when the queen gave birth to 2 beautiful sons with hair of gold. The witch with the iron teeth stole them and put 2 puppies in their place. Then she buried the 2 boys opposite each other in the ground around the fish pond. The king was told the news that the queen had given birth to 2 puppies, and he had also lost the battle that day. This and the bad news about his wife made him very angry. He wrote a letter and sent it home. In the letter, he ordered that the queen and the 2 puppies should be thrown into the pond where a great whale lived. As soon as the messenger was sent away, he began to regret what he had ordered to be done. When the king arrived home from the battle, he married the witch's daughter. 2 trees bearing golden pears grew on the spot where the 2 princes with hair of gold were buried, and the king liked nothing better than to sit in their shade. The witch did not like this and told her daughter to tell the king to cut the pear trees down, and she nagged him until he had both trees cut down. From their wood 2 beds were made, one for the king and one for the queen. The witch ordered the splinters, twigs and branches to be burned. But no one noticed a passing goat that gobbled up 2 small twigs from the tree. When the Queen and King were sleeping in their beds one night, the Queen's bed asked the other, "Dear brother, is that weight not too heavy for you?" And the other bed answered, "It's not heavy at all, as my burden is my dear father. But mine's too heavy, as I have to bear my enemy." The witch was not asleep, and she overheard the beds talking. The next morning she ordered her daughter to burn the 2 beds, lest her sin come to light. The 2 beds were burned that very day. The witch with the iron teeth and her daughter were now convinced that they faced no more threats. But then the goat gave birth to 2 kids. The 2 little kids had hair of gold. The witch was shocked when she learned of this. She told her daughter to ask the king to have the 2 kids killed, and she could only recover if she ate their meat. The goat kids were killed, and the witch ordered that every strand of their golden hair should be cleared away. But as the kids' innards were washed in the stream, 2 little pieces turned into 2 goldfish. The 2 fish grew and grew until they were caught by a fisherman one day. He pulled the net to shore, and his joy turned to shock when he saw the 2 goldfish turn into 2 handsome young men with hair of gold. The 2 princes had been buried 17 years before, and so now the 2 young men were 17. They duly thanked the fisherman for catching them and asked him to take them to the king, as they knew a fine poem they wanted to recite for him. They knew they would be rewarded for their performance, and they promised to give this reward to the fisherman for his troubles. The fisherman shook all over with fear, but he agreed to take the 2 young men in the hope that he would receive a rich reward. The young men were announced to the king, and the king gave the order to let them in. The witch with the iron teeth saw what would happen, and she tried her best to keep them out. But the king eventually met the 2 youths in spite of all her tricks, and she tried to follow them in and convince the king not to believe the 2 young men. But the king resisted, saying, "Don't meddle, mother-in-law. This is my business and not yours." The 2 young men recited a poem to the king, and in that poem they told him their mother's story and their own. They told the king that the whale had swallowed their mother alive, and that she was still alive inside the whale's belly. They told the king to catch the whale, and they would recover their mother. They also asked the king to richly reward the fisherman for his good deed. The witch with the iron teeth constantly tried to interrupt the youths and did all she could to make the king disbelieve them. But the king paid all his attention to the 2 young men. The first thing the king did was to order that the whale be caught. The queen emerged from the whale alive, and the king begged her to forgive him. She had survived the ordeal intact. Then the king ordered his 2 sons and wife, and the witch and her daughter, to appear before the royal council. The king put the question to the council: "What does a witch deserve who tried to kill 2 boys and their dear mother, ruin their reputation, and deprive a father of his family? What should her punishment be?" So the royal council ordered that the witch and her daughter should be tied to the tails of 2 horses and dragged through the city. Then they had to be chopped into 4 and their bodies nailed to the 4 corners of the city. The queen and her 2 sons begged for mercy for both of them, but to no avail, and the sentence was duly carried out. The king gave a rich reward to the fishermen. There was a fabulous feast, and the people of the land and the royal family lived happily ever after.